You know this sound. Everybody knows this sound. It is the sound of summer, of being a kid, of running down the street with coins in your fist. It is also the sound of one of the strangest, most secretly cutthroat little businesses in America. It started with one man in Ohio, who put ice cream on a stick and sent out a fleet of trucks with bells. It grew into a childhood icon, 2,000 trucks rolling through the suburbs, a white uniformed driver on every corner, and then it turned into a war. Drivers in Manhattan carrying baseball bats, and worse, to defend a single street corner. One of them told a reporter, and this is a real quote, that it is like selling drugs. You fight for your turf. Rival companies stealing a jingle so valuable that people take each other to federal court over a nursery tune. And the outfit that invented all of it, that once had 2,000 trucks on the road, one day sold off every last one, some for as little as $1,000, and walked away from the street forever. So what is really going on behind that jingle? What does one of these trucks actually cost? Where does the money actually come from? Why is a street corner defended like it is beachfront property? And why does the business that sells the single happiest product on earth have such a surprisingly dark underside? Start with the truck, because there are two very different ways in. One way is cheap. You buy a used van and convert it. A basic used ice cream truck, an old step van, or a converted vehicle with a couple of freezers and a generator bolted in, can be found for anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000. That is the low door, and most independents come through it. A second way, you buy a name. The most famous soft-serve brand in the country runs on franchisees, and to be one of them, a driver pays around $100,000 and up for the truck, plus about $3,000 every year in royalties. In exchange, you get the trademarked truck design, the approved product, and most importantly, the sound. That famous jingle is a federally registered trademark, and only paid-up franchisees are allowed to play it. That company alone runs around 600 trucks across 18 states. So the first real decision is whether you are an independent, cheap and free, and on your own, or a franchisee, expensive, and branded, and protected. Same street. Two completely different businesses. Now what arrives with the truck, because it is more than a freezer on wheels. First, the permits. You are a mobile food vendor, which means health department rules, vending licenses, and in some cities a permit system so tight that the licenses themselves trade for huge sums on a gray market. In the toughest cities, the piece of paper can be harder to get than the truck. Second, the season. And this is the hard ceiling over everything. An ice cream truck is a summer creature. In most of the country you are looking at roughly 4 months of real selling, late spring to early fall, and inside that window you are utterly at the mercy of the weather. A rainy week in July is not a slow week. It is a week that never happened at all, and you cannot get it back. Third, the inventory. You buy your novelties and your bars wholesale, cheap, by the case, and you sell them one at a time at a markup that would make most businesses weep with envy. Which sounds wonderful, until you count how few you actually sell in a day. And fourth, the thing nobody puts on the brochure. You inherit a route, a specific set of streets, at specific times, and that route is not a happy little accident. It is territory. And territory, in this business, is fought over. Now the money, how it actually comes in. Layer 1, the street route, and the markup here is almost absurd. A novelty bar might cost you well under $1 wholesale, and you sell it for 3 or 4. In the language of the business, the cost of the goods can be as low as 12% of what you charge, which means for every dollar that comes in, you might keep around 88 cents of it before your other costs. On paper, that is one of the best product margins in all of retail. Layer 2, and this is where the real operators make their living, events and catering. A corporate party, a school field day, a wedding, a festival. You get booked in advance, for a flat fee or a big guaranteed minimum. You park, and you serve a crowd that came to you. No driving around hoping, no fighting for a corner. Predictable, high volume, and far more profitable than crawling down a quiet street ringing a bell. Layer 3, the brand itself, for a franchisee. That trademark jingle is not decoration. It is a customer acquisition machine, a little pop-up shop that announces itself by sound, and triggers a craving in every child within 3 blocks before they have even seen the truck. That is what the franchise fee actually buys. Not just ice cream, the sound that sells it. So sit with the strange math of it. Listen to that again. This is a business where you keep almost 90 cents on the dollar of the product itself, and where the average owner still makes only around $30,000 a year. How can both of those be true at once? Because the season is 4 months, the weather steals a chunk of those, and you can only physically sell so many bars, one child at a time, from one window, on one street. You are not selling ice cream, you are selling a craving, triggered by a sound, in a tiny window of the year, on a corner that someone else also wants. Which is exactly why the ledger bites. The truck payment comes first, and it runs every month of the year, including the 8 months the truck is parked and earning nothing at all. Then the inventory to fill the freezers. Then fuel, and it is worse than it looks, because the truck burns fuel not only driving the route, but idling for hours to keep the freezers cold. Then the generator, then the permits and licenses, then insurance, which for reasons we are about to see is one of the most important lines in this entire business. Then maintenance on an old converted van worked hard in the heat, and then the invisible costs. The rainy day that erases a week of income, the 8-month off-season when the whole operation hibernates but the loan does not, and the poached corner, the day you arrive at your best spot, and someone else is already parked there, ringing a bell. Now the trap, and it is unlike almost anything else in this channel. Your entire business is a claim on territory that you do not legally own. A route is a set of corners at a set of times, and no law hands them to you. You hold them by showing up, by being first, by being known on that block, and, too often, by being willing to face down whoever tries to take them. A better funded rival, a copycat playing your own jingle, or a driver who just decides your corner is now his corner, can bleed away the exact spots your season depends on, and you have only 4 months to make a year of money. On ground you have to defend the entire time. Density and territory are the whole game, and territory does not come with a deed. So where did all of this begin? With a candy maker in Youngstown, Ohio, in 1920, named Harry Burt. Burt ran an ice cream parlor, and he worked out a chocolate coating that would set hard over ice cream. His daughter tried the first one, and said it tasted wonderful, but was much too messy to hold. His son had the fix. Freeze a wooden stick into it, like the lollipops they already sold, and give it a handle. Burt called it the Good Humor Bar, and he earned 2 patents on the idea. But the bar was not really his masterpiece. The delivery was. Burt bought a fleet of 12 refrigerated trucks, hung a set of bells on them, the first borrowed from his son's bobsled, and dressed his drivers in clean white uniforms. The Good Humor Man. A truck that announced itself with a chime, and brought the treat directly to your street. He had not just invented a snack, he had invented the ice cream truck, the bell, the uniform, the whole ritual of summer, all at once. By the 1950s, his creation had grown into a fleet of 2,000 trucks across the country. And then, slowly, that same company showed everyone exactly how this business can die. Through the 1950s and 60s, the ground shifted under Good Humor. The suburbs spread out, so the roots grew thin. Television kept children indoors. Soft-serve rivals rolled in and stole territory. The drivers unionized, and strikes hit during the few precious summer weeks that were the whole year's income. In one summer, a strike shut the New York operation down for 3 weeks in June, the worst possible time. The seasonal work was so brutal that new hires often lasted 2 or 3 weeks before quitting. And then the killer, insurance. Courts began holding ice cream vendors responsible when a child, running across the street toward that irresistible chime, was struck by a passing car. The company even added swinging stop arms to its trucks, like a school bus. But the lawsuits and the insurance costs climbed, and by 1968, the company that invented the ice cream truck was losing money. That end was quiet and total. Through the 1970s, the fleet shrank, and by the end of that decade, the very company that put 2,000 trucks on the road sold off what was left, for as little as $1,000 a truck. The inventor of the ice cream truck walked away from the ice cream truck. Many of those cheap trucks were bought by the drivers themselves, who kept going as independents. That empire dissolved into 1,000 little operators, each one fighting for their own corner, which is almost exactly the business you see today. So who actually makes this work now, and how? They live on events, not just routes. The smart operators treat the street as romance, and the booked event as the business. A locked-in schedule of parties, festivals, schools, and corporate gigs, paid in advance, is worth more than 100 hopeful laps around a neighborhood. A route is the dream. The booked calendar pays the bills. They squeeze the season for everything it has. 4 months is all you get, so every hot day is worked hard, and there is always a plan for the rainy ones, and a use for the long winter, whether that is storing the truck cheaply or finding indoor events. They own something defensible, a real franchise and its protected jingle, a standing relationship with a school district or a big employer, a really locked-in event, something a rival cannot just park in front of and take. And they never forget the good humor lesson. What killed the giant was not a bad flavor. It was liability and cost. They keep their overhead low, their insurance right, and their safety spotless. Because in this business, the freezer full of joy sits on top of a surprising amount of risk. So does it work? In the right hands, yes. And the product margins really are that good. A lean operator with a full events calendar, a defensible niche, and a disciplined 4-month sprint can clear a really nice seasonal income, and some push toward the very top of the range. When the sun is out and the calendar is booked, few small businesses are as pleasant or as profitable. In the wrong hands, it is a grind. An average street-only operator makes about $30,000 for a season of long hot days, weather that robs them, and corners they have to defend. And the ultimate warning sits in the history itself. Even the company that invented this business, with 2,000 trucks and a household name, could not make pure street vending survive. Which brings it back to what you are really buying. You are not buying a truck, and you are not even really buying a route. You are buying a 4-month claim on a street corner, announced by a sound you may not fully own, held against everyone else who wants that exact corner. What sits in that freezer is pure childhood joy. The business wrapped around it is one of the most quietly territorial there is. That jingle sells the happiest thing in the world. Behind it is a business about turf, and timing, and a season that always ends. Burt gave America the sound of summer. He could never have guessed it would one day be worth carrying a machete to protect.